The crystalline throne room aboard the celestial warship Divine Right sparkled with an otherworldly brilliance, its geometric patterns pulsing with quantum-trapped starlight. Princess Valorian Xai's silver boots clicked against the transparent floor as she paced, her shadow dancing across the holographic star charts swirling beneath her feet. Each step sent ripples through the neural-linked displays, causing distant solar systems to shimmer and shift like disturbed pools of liquid light. Earth, she pronounced the word with practiced disdain, letting it roll off her bioluminescent tongue. That peculiar little marble that has somehow managed to slip through our divine grasp for 3 centuries. Her voice carried the weight of royalty, enhanced by subtle harmonic undertones that her species had evolved for commanding lesser beings. The War Council, 12 of the Empire's most decorated military minds, stood in perfect formation around the throne. Their ceremonial armor, forged from quantum-crystallized starship hulls, caught and amplified the room's ambient light. Each council member's neural crown pulsed in sync with the princess's emotions, a sign of their absolute loyalty to the celestial monarchy. High Commander Zelnar, his aged carapace bearing the scars of 1,000 conquests, stepped forward. The movement caused his armor to chime softly, a melody of past victories. "Your Highness," he began, mandibles clicking in concern, "perhaps a more conventional target would be more appropriate for your coming-of-age conquest. The Proxima colonies have shown signs of dissent, and—" Valorian silenced him with a gesture, her silver eyes narrowing as she manipulated the holographic display. Earth's image expanded, filling the throne room with swirling clouds and glittering cities. "Look at them," she commanded, zooming in on a bustling metropolis. Their vehicles still touch the ground. Their buildings barely scratch their troposphere. Their communications still rely on primitive electromagnetic waves. She walked through the hologram, letting the image of a human city pass through her crystalline form. 3 previous diplomatic missions all failed. 2 military expeditions vanished without trace. A cruel smile played across her luminescent features. "They're hiding something, High Commander. Something that makes them think they can resist our divine mandate to rule." The War Council shifted uncomfortably, their neural crowns flickering with unease. Strategic Analyst Kinra, youngest of the Council, dared to speak. "The disappearances suggest defensive capabilities beyond their apparent technological level, Your Highness. Our long-range scans show inconsistencies that make them perfect." Valorian spun to face her council, her ceremonial cape sending cascades of light through the chamber. "What better way to prove my worthiness as heir to the celestial throne than to solve this centuries-old puzzle? To succeed where others have failed." She gestured again, and new holograms materialized. Human military installations, power plants, defense systems, all carefully selected, all showing exactly what Earth wanted them to see, though none of the Celestials recognized this fact. Look at their weapons, chemical propellants, and crude energy beams. Their shields can barely deflect solar radiation, let alone our quantum lances. High Commander Zelnar's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of growing distress. "Your Highness, there's an old military saying, when prey seems too easy to catch, one should look for the hunter's trap." Valorian laughed, the sound like crystal wind chimes in a storm. "And who are the hunters here, High Commander? These beings who can barely unite their own planet, who still fight wars over crude organic fuels and patches of dirt." She waved her hand through another hologram, dispersing the image of a human battlefield. "No, they're not hunters. They're prey who have somehow stumbled upon a few tricks to avoid our divine mandate, and it's time we showed them their true place in the cosmic order." She ascended the steps to her throne, each movement precisely calculated to demonstrate royal grace. The crystalline seat adjusted to her form, quantum circuits linking with her neural implants. "Prepare the Conquest fleet," she commanded, her voice resonating with imperial authority. "I will solve the riddle of Earth, and their mysterious resistance will become the cornerstone of my legacy." The War Council bowed as one, their armor creating a symphony of chimes. As they filed out to execute her commands, Valorian allowed herself a moment of private satisfaction. Soon, she would succeed where others had failed. Soon, she would prove herself worthy of the celestial crown. None of them noticed the subtle quantum fluctuations in their surveillance feeds, the microsecond delays in their scans of Earth. None of them recognized that every piece of intelligence they had gathered was carefully crafted theater, staged by a civilization far more advanced than they could imagine. Earth wasn't hiding from the celestial monarchy. It was setting a stage for the Empire's greatest defeat. The celestial fleet materialized above Earth in a cascade of quantum ruptures. 5,000 warships emerging from hyperspace like a metallic storm front. Their crystalline hulls caught the sun's light, creating an artificial aurora that painted the sky in shimmers of otherworldly color. On the bridge of the Divine Right, Princess Valorian watched Earth's apparently primitive detection systems light up with predictable panic. "Your Highness," High Commander Zelnar reported, his mandibles twitching with amusement. "Their planetary defense grid is activating. Shall I demonstrate our superiority by deactivating it?" Valorian raised a hand, her silver eyes fixed on the swirling blue planet below. "No, let them feel the full weight of our presence first. Open a channel to their planetary leadership." The holographic communications array sparkled to life, and after several seconds of apparent technical difficulties, a human face appeared. Admiral Jessica Blackwood's image flickered slightly, a calculated imperfection that suggested struggling transmission systems. "This is Admiral Blackwood of Earth's United Defense Council," she announced, her voice wavering just enough to suggest nervousness. Her uniform appeared slightly wrinkled, her hair not quite regulation perfect. We request clarification of your intentions." Valorian smiled, savoring the moment. Her ceremonial armor amplified her presence, quantum circuits creating a subtle aura of power. "I am Princess Valorian XII of the Celestial Monarchy. Your world has rejected previous offers to join our divine empire. This oversight will now be corrected." Blackwood's eyes widened, her hand seemingly fumbling with something off-screen. "Please, Your Highness, there must be some misunderstanding. Our records of previous contact are incomplete." "Incompetent as well as primitive," sneered strategic analyst Kinra from her console. "Their information systems must be truly barbaric." Valorian raised her hand again, silencing her counsel. "Your technological and cultural development has stagnated due to isolation, Admiral. The Celestial Monarchy will guide you toward your proper place in the cosmic hierarchy. Prepare your leaders for my arrival. I will accept your submission personally." Blackwood's image shook her head, appearing flustered. "Your Highness, our protocols for first contact situations require a graduated approach to cultural integration. Perhaps we could establish a preliminary dialogue." "Your protocols are irrelevant," Valorian interrupted, her voice carrying harmonic overtones of command. "You have one planetary rotation to prepare. I suggest you use it wisely." The transmission cut off, and Valorian turned to her war council with triumphant satisfaction. "Did you see their primitive communication systems? They couldn't even maintain a stable quantum link." High Commander Zelnar's carapace shifted uneasily. "Your Highness, something feels orchestrated." The human admiral's responses followed classical submission patterns too precisely. "Of course they did," Valorian laughed, the sound crystalline and confident. "They're a primitive species following primitive diplomatic protocols. Their responses are predictable because they're simple." Deep beneath the Earth's surface, in a quantum-shielded command center, the real Admiral Blackwood removed her neural interface helmet and smiled at her staff. The holographic simulation room powered down, its advanced systems having perfectly rendered her performance of a flustered, outmatched military leader. "Quantum surveillance confirms they bought it," her technical chief reported, monitoring streams of data from invisible sensors scattered throughout the celestial fleet. "Their systems are already trying to brute force hack what they think is our primitive defense grid." Blackwood nodded, her earlier nervous demeanor replaced with predatory focus. "Let them through the first layer of security. Feed them exactly what they expect to find. She turned to a holographic display showing Valorian's fleet in perfect detail. Humanity spent centuries preparing for this moment. Let's not waste all that practice. Back on the divine right, Valorian prepared for her triumphant descent to Earth. Her ceremonial armor was polished to blinding perfection, its quantum circuits humming with power. She watched through the ship's sensors as human cities below buzzed with apparent panic, emergency vehicles rushing about, military units deploying with obvious inexperience. "Begin the landing sequence," she commanded, missing entirely how every chaos pattern below matched theoretical prediction models too perfectly. It's time to show these humans the true meaning of celestial authority. In response, Earth's apparent defense systems began powering down in a carefully choreographed display of submission, each failure and glitch meticulously designed to feed the princess's expectations. The trap was nearly ready to spring. The New York Planetary Reception Center gleamed in the morning sun, its hastily constructed quantum crystal spires deliberately imperfect, showcasing exactly the level of technological development the Celestials expected to find. Princess Valorian strode through its halls, her silver boots clicking against floors that had been carefully engineered to look like a primitive attempt at replicating celestial architecture. Another resistance cell neutralized. "Your Highness," reported Commander Zelmar, his battle-scarred carapace reflecting the artificial lighting. "This one actually managed to damage one of our secondary sensor arrays before being captured." Valorian smiled, watching human servants scurry about with perfectly calculated anxiety. "Show me," she commanded, gesturing to the holographic display embedded in the wall. The footage showed a group of human rebels, their tactics almost textbook in their predictability, attacking a celestial monitoring station. Their weapons, crude plasma rifles and kinetic launchers, barely scratched the crystalline surfaces before security forces overwhelmed them. "Their strategy is laughable," strategic analyst Kinra observed, her neural crown pulsing with smugness. "They attacked from the most obvious direction, ignored basic energy signature masking, and retreated along predictable vectors. Deep underground, in a quantum-shielded observation post, the captured resistance fighters were already analyzing the data gathered from their staged attack." Lieutenant Sarah Martinez removed her stealth suit, its surface crawling with microscopic quantum sensors that had mapped every frequency and vulnerability in the celestial defenses. "The emission readings are exactly what we needed," she reported to Admiral Blackwood, who watched from the central command hub. "Their quantum crystalline structure has 7 exploitable resonance frequencies. Give us 2 more failed attacks, and we'll have their entire defensive matrix mapped." Blackwood nodded, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that showed every celestial ship, soldier, and system in perfect detail. "Keep the failure pattern consistent with their psychological profiles. We've spent too long setting this trap to trigger their suspicions now." Back in the reception center, Valorian reviewed reports of human industrial centers struggling to meet celestial production quotas. Every factory showed signs of strain, each one carefully orchestrated to demonstrate humanity's technological limitations. Power grids flickered at calculated intervals, transportation systems experienced precisely timed disruptions, and communication networks displayed perfectly predicted interference patterns. "Your coming-of-age conquest proceeds even better than expected, Your Highness," Zelnar commented, though something in his ancient eyes suggested lingering doubt. "The humans' resistance lacks any coherent strategy. Their attempts to preserve their autonomy are almost artlessly direct." Valorian waved away his concerns, watching a holographic representation of Earth's major cities. Dots of red marked sites of failed resistance, creating a pattern that any first-year tactical student would recognize as chaotic and ineffective. "They fight as primitives fight, High Commander. With passion instead of precision, with desperation instead of strategy." She zoomed in on a sector where human military forces had retreated, leaving behind damaged equipment for celestial forces to capture. "Look how they abandoned their technology, not even bothering to destroy it properly. Their weapons, their armor, Their communication devices, all of it tells the same story. A species barely past its planetary adolescence. Hidden beneath the seemingly abandoned equipment, quantum infiltration modules the size of molecules mapped every frequency, every protocol, every vulnerability in celestial systems. Each piece of evidence of human incompetence was another strand in an invisible web, growing tighter by the hour. In her private chambers that evening, Valorian began composing her victory speech. The crystalline walls reflected her image countless times, each reflection showing a different angle of her triumphant pose. Let history record, she dictated to her neural transcriber, that Earth's resistance crumbled as all primitive resistances do before the divine authority of the celestial monarchy. The transcriber recorded her words perfectly, its quantum circuits synchronizing with the master archive aboard the Divine Right. Neither device detected the microscopic anomalies in their transmission patterns, the subtle data streams being siphoned through subspace to humanity's true command centers. Admiral Blackwood, watching the princess's private broadcast along with countless others, secure celestial communications, allowed herself a small smile. "Continue monitoring all channels," she ordered her staff. "The moment she announces her coronation plans, we'll have everything we need." The trap, centuries in the making, was nearly complete. Every human failure, every retreat, every surrender was another step toward victory, a victory that would rewrite the very nature of interstellar power. The first sign that something was wrong came during a routine security scan of the Celestial Embassy. Princess Valorian watched in growing irritation as her most advanced quantum diagnostics struggled to maintain connection with the fleet's neural network. The crystalline walls around her flickered with unstable light patterns, their usual perfect synchronization disrupted by microscopic delays. "Another system anomaly, Your Highness," reported Chief Technical Overseer Venra, her carapace plates shifting in agitation. "Third one this solar rotation. The quantum cores are reporting ghost readings that shouldn't be possible given human technological levels." Valorian's silver eyes narrowed as she studied the diagnostic holograms. "Explain." "It's as if..." Venra's neural crown pulsed with confusion. "It's as if our systems are interacting with quantum technologies that don't exist. We scan a human servant, and for a microsecond, their neural pattern shows complexity rivaling our own. We analyze their primitive defense grid and catch echoes of computations that should be centuries beyond their capability." High Commander Zelmar stepped forward, his ancient armor chiming softly. "Your Highness, during the last resistance raid, I observed something disturbing. A human soldier's reflexes exceeded our predictive models. She dodged a quantum lance burst before it was fired." "Impossible," Valorian declared, but her voice carried a hint of uncertainty. "Their neural systems are barely evolved beyond basic electrochemical processes." In the quantum-shielded command center below, Admiral Blackwood reviewed the latest infiltration data with her senior staff. Holographic displays showed the spreading network of quantum seeds planted throughout the celestial fleet, each one gathering data and preparing for the final phase. "They're starting to notice the inconsistencies," Lieutenant Martinez reported, her quantum infiltration suit still humming from her latest failed attack. "Their diagnostic sweeps are becoming more frequent, more thorough." Blackwood nodded, watching real-time feeds from countless invisible sensors. "Good. Let them see just enough to make them doubt, but not enough to make them run. The quantum web needs another 12 hours to reach critical coverage." Back in the embassy, Valorian paced before her war council, her perfect composure showing tiny cracks. "Review the pattern of resistance activities," she commanded. "Show me every engagement, every retreat, every failure." The holographic display filled with data points, each marking a human defeat. Strategic analyst Kinra's mandibles clicked rapidly as she studied the pattern. "Your Highness, there's a mathematical precision to their failures. Each retreat leaves them in optimal position to observe our responses. Each surrender provides them maximum exposure to our containment protocols. You suggest these primitives are capable of such calculation?" Valorian's voice carried harmonic overtones of displeasure, but her eyes showed the first glimmer of real fear. "No, Your Highness." Kinra's neural crown pulsed with growing alarm. "I suggest that what we're seeing is impossible. No species, primitive or advanced, could fail this perfectly." A human servant entered, bearing a crystalline data tablet. Valorian watched him move, really watched for the first time, and noticed how his movements seemed to flow around quantum field fluctuations that should have been invisible to human senses. "High Commander," she said quietly, "how many resistance members have we actually confirmed eliminated? Not captured, eliminated." Zelnar's ancient eyes widened as he processed the question. None, Your Highness. Every engagement has ended in capture or retreat. We haven't confirmed a single human casualty." The servant silently departed, his movements still too perfect, too aware. In the depths of the command center, his quantum infiltration suit transmitted everything. The princess's realization, the War Council's growing panic, the first true cracks in celestial confidence. "Quantum web saturation at 87%, Martinez announced, watching the network of infiltrators grow. "They're finally asking the right questions." Admiral Blackwood smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Too late," she said, watching Valorian's growing distress through 1,000 hidden sensors. "Far too late. Prepare for Phase 4 initiation. Let's show them exactly what they've walked into." In her private chambers, Valorian reviewed the Conquest records again and again, seeing for the first time how every human action, every failure, every surrender had been one move in an impossibly complex strategy. The realization came too late. She hadn't been springing a trap. She had been walking into one. The grand ceremonial hall of the Celestial Embassy sparkled with quantum crystal radiance as Princess Valorian prepared to address her empire. 5,000 ships in orbit, their weapons primed for a victory display, waited for her signal. The War Council stood in formation, their armor gleaming, neural crowns pulsing in anticipation of her triumph. "Begin the broadcast," Valorian commanded, her voice steady despite the lingering doubts that plagued her. The quantum communication array hummed to life, connecting to every celestial world and colony. "Citizens of the Divine Empire," she began, silver eyes gleaming. "Today marks the successful integration of Earth into our cosmic hierarchy." The holographic displays exploded with light, quantum circuits shrieking as they were overwhelmed by an impossible surge of data. Admiral Jessica Blackwood's image appeared, no longer showing any trace of the nervous, primitive leader she pretended to be. "I'm afraid," Blackwood said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of preparation, "that your broadcast has been temporarily delayed, Your Highness." Valorian's guard detail raised their quantum lances, only to watch in horror as their weapons dissolved into clouds of sparkling dust. Throughout the embassy, throughout the entire fleet, celestial technology began to transform and reconfigure. "Impossible," strategic analyst Kinra whispered, her neural crown going dark. "Our quantum encryption was broken 3 centuries ago," Blackwood finished. "When your first exploratory fleet arrived, we didn't destroy them, Princess. We studied them. We learned. We prepared." The floor beneath their feet rippled like liquid crystal, and the embassy's walls became transparent, revealing the truth that had been hidden beneath Earth's surface. Vast technological complexes stretched to the horizon, their architecture so advanced it made celestial engineering look primitive by comparison. High Commander Zelnar's ancient eyes widened as orbital sensors showed the truth about Earth's orbital space. Massive structures emerged from dimensional pockets, their surfaces covered in technology that defied celestial understanding. The human ships they dismissed as primitive defense vessels shimmered and transformed, revealing their true forms. "Your conquest fleet," Blackwood continued, now simultaneously appearing on every quantum display in the Celestial Armada, "is currently surrounded by approximately 50,000 human warships. They've been there the entire time, waiting. Your sensors couldn't detect them because, frankly, we didn't want them to." Valorian watched in mounting horror as her supposedly invincible fleet was systematically disconnected from its own command protocols. Every failed resistance attack, every captured rebel, every surrendered piece of equipment had carried quantum infiltrators that were now activating simultaneously. The patterns, she whispered, finally understanding. Every retreat, every failure, was calculated to the quantum level, Blackwood confirmed. Each defeat positioned our infiltration units exactly where they needed to be. Your confidence in our inferiority was the perfect cover for the most comprehensive infiltration in military history. The quantum crystals throughout the embassy began resonating with new frequencies as hidden human technologies revealed themselves. What the Celestials had thought were simple decorative patterns were actually incredibly advanced computational systems, recording and analyzing their every move. Humanity chose isolation, Blackwood explained, her holographic form walking through the embassy as if she were physically present, not out of weakness, but necessity. We recognized a pattern in the galaxy. Species like yours, convinced of their divine right to rule, spreading like a cancer through the stars. We decided to wait, to prepare, to turn your own certainty of supremacy into a weapon. Lieutenant Martinez materialized next to her, the quantum infiltration suit she wore now operating at full capacity. Every human you've interacted with, she said, every servant, every prisoner, every defeated soldier, was an elite operative with technology centuries beyond your understanding. We played the part of primitive victims perfectly, because we knew your prejudices wouldn't let you see past the facade. Valorian sank onto her crystalline throne, watching as her mighty conquest fleet was systematically isolated, contained, and neutralized by technologies that rewrote the very laws of physics she thought she understood. Now, Blackwood said, her voice carrying neither cruelty nor triumph, just calm certainty, let's discuss the future of the celestial monarchy. I believe you'll find humanity has some rather significant suggestions for reform. Princess, Valorian watched in stunned silence as her mighty conquest fleet tore itself apart. Quantum cores flickered and died, neural networks collapsed, and weapon systems turned against their own ships. Each failure cascaded through the fleet with mathematical precision, following patterns too perfect to be anything but precisely engineered. Your Highness, High Commander Zelnar's voice cracked with desperation. The divine rights systems are being rewritten at the quantum level. We've lost control of 90% of the fleet's primary functions. Through the embassy's now transparent walls, Valorian could see Earth's true face emerging. Massive city ships rose from the oceans, their surfaces rippling with energy fields that made celestial shielding look primitive. The sky darkened as orbital platforms emerged from dimensional pockets, their scale dwarfing anything in the celestial arsenal. Admiral Blackwood's hologram walked through the War Council chamber, each step releasing waves of energy that transformed the crystalline architecture around her. Let me show you something, Princess. Something your empire has been too blind to see for centuries. The air shimmered, and suddenly they were surrounded by holographic displays showing past celestial expeditions to Earth. Valorian recognized the fleet signatures, missions that had vanished without trace over the centuries. We didn't destroy them, Blackwood explained, gesturing to the footage of celestial ships being systematically disabled and captured. We studied them, learned from them, used them to perfect our understanding of your technologies and vulnerabilities. Lieutenant Martinez appeared beside her, her quantum infiltration suit now operating openly, bending light and energy in ways that should have been impossible. Every time you sent ships to study Earth, you were actually giving us more tools to dismantle your empire. Strategic analyst Kinra's neural crown sparked and died as she processed the data streaming through the holographic displays. The mathematics, the failure patterns we observed, they weren't random. They were forming a quantum-entangled network throughout our entire fleet. Very good, Blackwood nodded, genuine approval in her voice. Though you're seeing only a fraction of it. Every human resistance fighter you captured, every piece of equipment you seized, every facility you occupied, All of them were quantum seeds. Now they've bloomed. Valorian staggered as her neural link to the fleet dissolved. Countless generations of assumed superiority crumbling in moments. Through the disintegrating quantum network, she could feel her ships being systematically isolated and contained by technologies that violated everything she thought she knew about physics. Impossible, she whispered, watching the human warship phase through solid matter to disable the celestial cruiser. Your species, your technology level, was exactly what we wanted you to see, Martinez finished. Your empire's greatest weakness wasn't your technology, Princess. It was your absolute certainty that no primitive species could possibly threaten you. High Commander Zelnar's ancient armor crumbled to dust as previously invisible quantum infiltrators activated. The pattern of our defeat, he realized, his mandibles clicking in shocked admiration. It mirrors every conquest we've ever conducted. You studied our standard invasion protocols and turned them against us. Centuries of data, Blackwood confirmed. Every world your empire has conquered, every species you've subjugated. We watched, we learned, and we prepared. Your tactics never changed because you never believed they needed to. Through gaps in the dissolving quantum field, Valorian could see her fleet being systematically reconstructed. Human technology flowed through celestial ships like liquid light, rewriting their very structure at the atomic level. Your empire's quantum encryption, Martinez explained, her infiltration suit interfacing directly with the embassy's systems, was based on principles we mastered 1,000 years ago. Every defense you created, we had already broken. Every weapon you developed, we had already countered. Admiral Blackwood's hologram solidified, becoming indistinguishable from physical reality. Humanity chose isolation because we saw the pattern of empires like yours spreading through the galaxy. We decided to wait, to prepare, to position ourselves as the perfect target for a young princess eager to prove herself. Valorian sank to her knees as the last quantum links to her fleet went dark. Around her, the embassy's crystalline architecture continued its transformation, revealing layers of human technology that had been hidden within its structure since the moment of its construction. Your conquest, Blackwood said softly, was over before it began. The only question now is what lessons you'll learn from it. The observation deck of the former Celestial Embassy hung suspended in space, its crystalline walls now transformed into something that defied Valorian's understanding. Earth rotated below, its surface alive with previously hidden technological marvels that made her empire's greatest achievements look like a child's toys. Your coming-of-age conquest, Admiral Blackwood said, standing beside the fallen princess, was chosen for you long before you made your decision. We've been watching your development since childhood, analyzing your psychological profiles, predicting your actions with quantum certainty. Valorian's silver eyes reflected the transformed fleet that had once been her pride. Human technology had reshaped the ships into new configurations, their quantum cores repurposed to serve functions she couldn't begin to comprehend. Why? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. If you possessed such power, why wait? Why allow our empire to continue spreading across the galaxy? Lieutenant Martinez emerged from a dimensional pocket, her infiltration suit now openly displaying capabilities that seemed magical even by celestial standards. Because conquest wasn't our goal, Princess. Revolution was. Holographic displays materialized around them, showing countless worlds under celestial rule. On each planet, hidden quantum seeds planted by Earth's operatives were activating, spreading through imperial networks like digital wildfire. Your empire, Blackwood explained, was built on a foundation of lies. Genetic superiority, divine right to rule, technological supremacy. We could have shattered those illusions centuries ago, but that would have only created chaos. Instead, we waited, gathered evidence, and prepared for something more profound. High Commander Zelnar, stripped of his ancient armor, but still bearing his dignity, stepped forward. You've been planning this since our first contact, he realized. Every disappeared expedition, every failed diplomatic mission. was an opportunity to study your empire's weaknesses, Martinez confirmed. Not your military or technological weaknesses, your cultural ones. The stories you told yourselves about your own superiority, the assumptions that made you predictable. Valorian watched as quantum ripples spread across the galaxy, carrying humanity's revelation to every corner of her empire. On thousands of worlds, evidence of celestial deception was being systematically exposed. The carefully maintained illusion of divine authority crumbled in the face of irrefutable proof. Your subjects, Blackwood said gently, are learning the truth about their supposed genetic inferiority, about the technologies you've suppressed to maintain control, about the real history of their civilizations before celestial conquest. Through the quantum network that now connected the former empire, Valorian could feel the reactions cascading across space. Anger, confusion, revelation, hope, emotions from countless species washing over her like a tidal wave of truth. We didn't want to replace one empire with another, Martinez explained, her infiltration suit interfacing with the transformed embassy systems. That's why we waited for the perfect moment, for a leader whose defeat would expose the fundamental flaws in the entire system. Valorian's silver skin dulled as the full weight of understanding settled over her. I was chosen, she whispered, because my humiliation would be complete, because my absolute certainty in celestial supremacy made me the perfect instrument of its undoing. Yes, Blackwood acknowledged without cruelty. Your conquest was designed to fail so spectacularly that no one could cling to the old lies. But what happens next depends on you. The observation deck shifted, offering views of human ships spreading throughout celestial space, but they weren't attacking or conquering. Instead, they were establishing communication networks, sharing technologies, breaking down the artificial barriers that had kept species isolated and dependent on imperial authority. Your empire is finished, Martinez stated flatly, but your people don't have to suffer. Help us guide them towards something better. Show them that even a princess can learn from failure. Valorian stood in silence, watching the quantum ripples of change spreading across the galaxy. Every certainty she'd been raised with, every assumption about her divine right to rule, lay shattered at her feet, and in their place, she saw something she'd never expected. An opportunity to become more than her programming, more than her prejudices, more than the lies she'd been taught since birth. Show me, she said finally, her voice carrying new humility. Show me the truth you've been preparing to teach us for all these centuries. On solar rotation after the fall of the celestial monarchy, Princess Valorian stood in Earth's true global assembly, a vast chamber that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Around her, representatives from 1,000 formerly subjugated worlds engaged in open dialogue, their neural networks freed from imperial constraints. The quantum democratization process exceeds our projections, Lieutenant Martinez reported, her infiltration suit now serving as a universal translator. 87% of former imperial worlds have established independent governance structures. The remaining 13% have requested human guidance during their transition. Valorian watched as holographic displays showed the transformation spreading across what had been her empire. Former celestial warships, reconstructed by human technology, now served as mobile learning centers, sharing knowledge that had been suppressed for generations. Your species, she said softly to Admiral Blackwood, didn't just plan for conquest. You planned for peace. We had centuries to prepare, Blackwood replied, gesturing to a quantum simulation of the galaxy's new political structure. Every resistance movement we pretended to fail at taught us more about how to succeed at transformation. Your empire's greatest weapon was ignorance. So we made knowledge our counterattack. Through the assembly's dimensional windows, Valorian could see Earth's surface had become a hub of interstellar cooperation. Species that had been kept separate by imperial decree now worked together, sharing technologies and cultures that had been hidden away. High Commander Zelnar, now serving as a liaison between former imperial forces and the new coalition, approached with fresh data. The genetic modification centers have been fully converted, he reported. The truth about our species' common ancestry is being shared across all former Imperial territories. How does it feel? Martins asked Valorian, learning that the Celestials' supposed genetic superiority was artificially engineered. That your ancestors modified themselves to appear more divine to their subjects. Valorian touched her silver skin, knowing now that its metallic sheen was a manufactured trait, not a sign of evolutionary advancement. Humbling, she admitted, but also freeing. We were prisoners of our own lies, weren't we? That's why we chose education over elimination, Blackwood explained. Your people weren't evil. They were trapped in a system of deliberate misinformation. Breaking that system without breaking them was our greatest challenge. The assembly chamber shifted, its quantum architecture reconfiguring to display the next phase of human plans. Not conquest, not subjugation, but a galaxy-wide renaissance of knowledge and cooperation. Your former subjects don't hate you, Martins noted, watching Valorian's reaction. Many of them understand that you were as much a victim of Imperial propaganda as they were. That's why we're offering you a choice. Valorian turned to face her, silver eyes now holding wisdom where once there had been only certainty. What choice? Help us, Blackwood said simply. Use your experience, your understanding of Imperial psychology, to help other worlds transition. Show the galaxy that true strength lies in admitting mistakes and working to correct them. Through the quantum network that now connected the former empire, Valorian could feel the ripples of change, of hope, of possibility. Worlds that had been enemies under Imperial rule were establishing diplomatic relations. Species that had been told they were genetically inferior were rediscovering their ancient achievements. I understand now, she said, watching a group of former Imperial citizens, learning about their true heritage from human teachers. My coming-of-age conquest failed because it was based on a lie. But perhaps this is my real opportunity to come of age, to grow beyond what I was programmed to be. That, Blackwood smiled, is exactly what humanity has been waiting to hear for 300 years. The assembly chamber hummed with energy as representatives from across the galaxy came together, not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals. Valorian took her place among them, no longer a princess of a false empire, but a student of a greater truth. The stars, she realized, watching the quantum displays showing the spread of knowledge and cooperation, don't belong to any one species. They belong to all of us. That's what you were trying to teach us all along. Welcome, Martins said softly, to your first real lesson in cosmic civilization.